How did restaurants do in 2024? Hello, this is Jonathan Mays, editor-in-chief of Restaurant Business. And in this week's episode of A Deeper Dive, I speak with Kevin Schimpf, the director of industry research with restaurant business sister company Technomic. And we talk about the annual Technomic Top 500 Chain Restaurant Report. The restaurant industry did not have a great year last year. If you look at the overall numbers, Kevin and I talk about that and why restaurants didn't do as well. Hint, they did not match inflation. We also talk about what sectors did well and what sectors did not. It's more menu-based, actually, than anything else. We also talk about why the industry shifted from some concepts to others and from some sectors to others and what it means for the future of the industry. We talk about all sorts of chains, including Texas Roadhouse, McDonald's, Starbucks, KFC, Raising Cane's, Chili's, Chick-fil-A, and many others. Also, we talk about what sectors should not exist or what sector should not exist. We're talking top 500 on A Deeper Dive, so please check it out. All right, I'm here with Kevin Schimpf. Kevin, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, so Kevin, we're here to talk top 500, but I need to start with this because we have a mutual enemy named the fast casual sector. Why don't you think the fast casual sector really exists?
Well, we're starting hot today. Oh, where do I begin, Jonathan? Where do I begin? It's kind of there was a time when it made a lot of sense to have the fast casual segment, right? You think about, 10 years ago, places like Panera, it was a very different experience. You hung out there for a while, you sat inside, you appreciated the nice interior of Panera. They generally didn't have a lot of drive-throughs. The food was higher quality. It was probably a little bit more expensive than, McDonald's or Burger King or some other fast food restaurant. But now I think so much of that has changed. People don't spend as much time inside restaurants anymore. They don't, marvel at the upscale interiors of limited service restaurants anymore. And beyond that, everything has gotten so expensive that I'm not sure consumers anyway can tell much of a difference between, dining at McDonald's or Panera now. And the last thing, and maybe the biggest thing is everyone has a drive-through now. Like some of the kind of old school established chains that we've thought of as fast casual, like, Panera, like I've mentioned, or Chipotle or Shake Shack, a lot of them have drive-throughs and they want to build more drive-throughs. So, all those reasons, I kind of rue the fast casual segment now. It's so hard to differentiate, and I'm not sure, the consumer can really tell a difference any longer.
Yeah. The two stories that always get me, actually, there are a few of them. And I mean, I think number one, the example I always think about is Culver's and Freddy's. They're not really any different. I mean, they are pretty much, I mean, there are there are some very key differences, notably in the size of the menu at Culver's. But basically, they're really similar concepts and, similar price points, similar quality levels. You can't tell me that there's, and yet we call Freddy's a fast casual chain and Culver's a QSR.
I understand too, if you're an operator, like you want to have, as many categories, as many segments, as many everything as possible, because then you can say, right, like I'm a fast casual bakery cafe with an Asian influence and my category is so small that I have 75% market share. So like operators, yes, they want to have as many categories as possible. But again, from the consumer perspective, there's not really a difference anymore. And I think that's where I get hung up. Our fast casual, it's a little bit of an enemy right now.
I'm with you. Maybe we're going to start a little thing that trying to do away with the fast casual.
Yeah.
Because it's not. And Chipotle's got basically drive-throughs all over the place. I mean, Raising Cane's is a drive-through concept and it's fast casual. For the non-ones, we call Subway and Jersey Mike's are direct competitors with similar price points.
And some of the kind of hot fast casual concepts that we've seen emerge over the last few years have struggled recently. BurgerFi for a moment was, this rapidly growing fast casual chain. They've hit the skids. They've had a rough couple years. Mod Pizza, Blaze Pizza. We saw this explosion in fast casual pizza. They've kind of come back down to earth in a lot of ways, is maybe even putting it nicely, coming back down to earth. So some of that has receded as well. And yeah, there's a lot going on with why I don't think the fast casual segment needs to exist anymore.
Right. And you know what? You know what, Kevin? There is nothing wrong with being fast food. I will say that
No,
there
there's
is
not.
nothing wrong at all with being fast food. It is the restaurant industry needs to do away with this idea that we are afraid of being known as a fast food chain. Guess what? The consumer actually likes fast food. They love
They
it.
do. They like convenient food. They like fast food. Maybe we need, a catchier title. We just call it counter service. I don't know, but maybe that would be more pleasing to people. Maybe that'll help.
Right. Yeah. Nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. All right. Let's now that we're off our little soapbox, our mutual soapbox, let's talk about 2024, because 2024 was not a great year unless you happen to be operating in the sector that neither of us think exists.
Yes, exactly. Man, so many things catch my eye right away when we're talking about, 2024 results for the top 500. I think the biggest one for me is that, growth overall was about 3% from a sales perspective. And the headline there is that doesn't meet inflation. Inflation for restaurants was about 4% last year. So on a real basis, if we're talking like economics here and we want to get, down into that granularity, the sales shrank for the top 500. So that's a big headline right in itself, right? Sales growth didn't meet inflation. So that's a big one. The next one that kind of caught my eye, which I was a little surprised by this year, is that, we have heard so much over the last year about closures. There's been a lot of big kind of noteworthy closures. Red Lobster closed a lot of locations. Hooters recently has closed a lot of locations. Boston Market, TGI Fridays, lots of closures, lots of headlines on that. But the percentage of chains shrinking who closed at least one location in 2024 actually was less than 2023, which was surprising to me. There was more chains that just kind of stayed the same. They didn't grow. They didn't shrink. But the amount of chains closing locations, it shrank a little bit. So some mixed signals there. But yeah, I don't know. That was really interesting to me as well.
Yeah, that's a bit of a surprise, because you would have thought after last year, because your point, yeah, I mean, last year we had more bankruptcies than we've had for a long time.
There is more severe closures, I would say, than there has been since the pandemic. The severity was bad, but the incidence of them was less, which is, again, kind of mixed signals, but it was an interesting finding for me for sure.
Right.
What caught your eye? What were you like? Oh, what's going on here?
Here's the thing that caught my eye, because that's a great question, because I was looking at, I went and looked at the whole 1,500. I just went whole hog, Kevin, and looked at the whole thing. And right, last year, not great. What was interesting to me, and I brought this up before, was the sector difference. Your traditional fast food, like limited service fast food sectors, didn't do well. Pizza, burgers, and sandwiches combined did less than 1% sales growth last year in the top 1,500. And, you got coffee, just 3%, desserts, 3%. So not even keeping up with inflation. But then you got chicken, 9% total sales growth in the chicken category, which is fascinating, because you have some struggling chains like KFC and brands of that nature that in that sector. And then of course, Mexican 9%, which I think you pointed out to me before, is, Taco Bell and Chipotle just surging. The other category, which is probably driven by like companies like Cava.
Yeah.
Like
It's Mediterranean. It's healthy. It's a kind of a combination of those two things that aren't quite big enough to be like their own breakout menu categories yet, but a lot of growth happening there too.
Yeah. And so you got like, it's almost like it's a shift. Like consumers are shifting, because it's not like, the thing is, like, if you say, and you brought this up before, if you simply say that a fast casual chain did better, you're not necessarily correct. Like fast casual pizza was awful last year, down 5%. I think every single fast casual pizza chain did not do well. And you brought up fast casual burgers, and fast casual burgers, less than 3% sales growth last year. So you really have two pretty key sectors that really didn't do all that well. Fast casual sandwiches did okay because of Jersey Mike's. But again, fast casual sandwiches don't really exist. I mean, on balance, let's face it. But you got you got Panera Bread had issues last year. You've got a lot of fast casual chains didn't do all that hot, it's almost as if menu is what's driving consumers to one thing or another, and then they're sort of broadening their horizons a little bit, or maybe it's just a symptom of they don't think these old ideas work as much anymore. They don't think burgers are not really what they want right now. They want to go to Mexican, or they're just sort of, it's sort of this broadening consumer base. I don't know. That was one of the more interesting things to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And kind of even on top of that, I think what you're seeing with some of those categories, like Coffee Cafe, for instance, is that one kind of struggling giant chain in a category can really bring down the growth overall. Like if you think of Coffee Cafe, Starbucks owns like 60% sales share in the chain part of that category. And just their struggles over the last year really dropped the growth of that category overall. But underneath that, you've got chains, like Seven Brew Coffee, you've got Dutch Bros, you've got Big B, Scooters, all of these chains growing at like double digit pace. And it's sort of like this interesting story of these giant national chains can really weigh down any given category. And sandwich is kind of a mixed bag, but there are chains performing well in there, like Jersey Mike's, for instance. But, Subway, the behemoth in that category, closed a lot of locations again last year and closed a lot of locations for many years, but they can kind of just bring down the growth overall. And you can see that in, the entire top 500 where, you've got McDonald's, Starbucks and Chick-fil-A at the top, and all three of those chains really off like their historical growth patterns, even over the last 3 years or so. And just some slowdowns for those chains, even if their results are still positive, can really bring down the top 500's overall growth rate. Cause like those three chains, McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, and Starbucks, that's like a quarter of all top 500 sales, just right there, those three chains. So whatever those guys do really has an impact one way or the other on the performance of all chain restaurants.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's chat about those guys for a minute. The big one, to me, one of the bigger headline numbers, I can't even believe I'm saying this. Chick-fil-A only had 5.4% sales growth. And that's basically all unit growth. They just added more locations, and, when you got to give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit. It's just they're expanding probably into smaller areas, and maybe that's an issue. But man, it might be price.
It could be. It could be. Yeah, I think part of it too might be a little bit of the novelty of it. They're kind of everywhere now, and it used to be that when a Chick-fil-A opened up near you, it was a huge thing. And now, in Chicago, where I am in the Chicagoland area, there's a ton of Chick-fil-A's now, and it's still exciting. It's a great chain. They do a very high quality product, but the novelty maybe is missing a little now. And that has probably impacted them a bit, but I think price as well is part of it. And just more competition. There's more Raising Cane's everywhere. Burger chains even have chicken on the menu now. So there's just more competition as well. It's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly it. I mean, the interesting thing though, was sticking with that chicken category, because I mean, you start to wonder if, because your point, like there is so much chicken available. I mean, everybody's got a chicken sandwich right now. Wingstop has actually Wingstop has a whole selection of chicken sandwiches now. But then you go down and you look at Raising Cane's, and I think Raising Cane's my numbers are over here. That's why I'm looking. Right, they're now a top 20 chain, and they are bigger than KFC.
They are bigger than KFC. I know. It's surprising. Yeah.
That is really symbolic. KFC is now, I mean, we've had 2 straight years of KFC falling behind somebody as being some sort of symbolic idea of the chicken sector. But Raising Cane's surpassing KFC is sort of a big deal. Raising Cane's with $6.6 million unit volumes on a per square foot basis. That is a ridiculous number. That is more impressive. And Chick-fil-A is what, 7.5 million? And Chick-fil-A's average unit volumes, they're still a powerhouse. They are still an absolute powerhouse. 9+ million for a standalone unit, 7.5 million. They do like 4 million in their mall units. It's just insane. But like Raising Cane's doing $6.6 million in their units is more impressive, frankly, than Chick-fil-A doing 7.5 million, in my opinion. That is an impressive chain at all by right
Yeah.
now. It's insane.
And two, I'm looking at the numbers, and Wingstop is right behind KFC as well. And I think, another year of growth like Wingstop has seen over the last 3 to 5 years, they're going to pass KFC as well. So that one's coming, and they're absolutely crushing as well. Just, so much growth for them and Raising Cane's, like you've been kind of filling us in on.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. I just am constantly impressed with that because it's just chicken fingers, man. It's chicken fingers sauce, and it's at some point, at some point they're gonna hit some sort of wall. But they've got a lot of growth. They don't have that many locations. How many locations? They're not even at 1,000. Or no, what are they at?
No, they're at like just over 800 or so, 830-ish, at least at the time that we published the top 500. So I'm sure they've got more now. But haven't even crossed the 1,000 store benchmark yet.
Yeah, no, it's an impressive. I will say one thing I will tell you about Raising Cane's. They treat their managers exceptionally well. If you, frankly, up and down this list, and it actually does include Chick-fil-A, if you're a restaurant company that really treats your managers well, you're probably going to do a lot better than you are somebody else. If you're emphasizing if you're a Raising Cane's manager, you're not a poor person. I will just tell you that in no uncertain terms. So let's talk about Starbucks, because they had the worst year they've had in at least 15 years last year, without any question. I think that if you got to go back to the Great Recession, I think in 08 or 09, they had a year like this when they had to close like 600 units and do all sorts of things. And Howard Schultz comes back and roughly fixes the chain for a long period of time. That was a brutal year. You got to start wondering, because you mentioned it before. You do start wondering whether all of these drive-through coffee concepts and all of this beverage, because there is a massive development of beverages, right? If that is taking some share away from Starbucks. They've got the Starbucks customer now has more options for beverages and stuff like that. And a lot of these younger consumers can go somewhere else. Do you think that might be the case?
Absolutely. Yeah. Those drive-through chains are just like proliferating at a rate that I've never seen before. Seven Brew and Big B and Scooters, all those guys that we've kind of mentioned before. Really chipping in, I think, to Starbucks. And it helps that all of those drive-through chains, they can just expand so rapidly because they've got a small footprint. They don't have a ton of equipment needs. They don't need that many employees. So just overnight, they kind of have popped up everywhere. And they're really chipping away at Starbucks. But there's so many things going on with Starbucks. There are issues with labor and just some bad publicity things recently. Yeah, I don't know. I think 2025 is going to be a very interesting year for them. And I very much am awaiting to see how they did in the first quarter of the year. And we'll know soon enough. But it's interesting times for those guys over there in Seattle.
It is a very interesting period. And it's always hard to say. 1 year is 1 year.
It is. It is.
You know this better than I do. It's just like you can have a bad year 1 year, and for whatever reason,
you're just one grimace shake away at all times from a great year.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. Social media giveth and social media taketh away.
Yeah,
and social media for years had giveth to Starbucks. They were benefiting by consumers fancifying their drinks and customizing the hell out of their beverages. And taking it to social media, and people like, oh, I can add all this stuff to my Starbucks beverage, and it kind of fueled their growth a little bit. And then social media sort of turned on them for whatever reason, maybe it was unionization, maybe it was the Middle East, maybe it was just sort of combination of a bunch of factors, and then everything turned negative, and they just really could not stop it. So it's I think, generally speaking about Starbucks, it's not a 1 year fix. It's probably a multi-year fix. But back to Seven Brew, because that is an incredible concept. They had
Yeah, triple digit growth again.
again, again. And the thing is, like, at this point, like, it's not cheap growth, because like it's triple digit growth, 163% in their unit count. The one thing I always look at is the gap between sales growth and unit count growth. And they do 2 million AUVs on those, right? Yeah, that's what you
Yeah,
got. And 78% unit growth last year. So that actually slowed down.
just 78%. Yeah.
No, I mean, just 78. I mean, I think they're sold out in the United States. It's just insane. It just is incredible. These drive-through coffee concepts, because you got scooters, and like Dutch Bros is like they had a great year last year.
They did. Yeah. 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 I mean, it'll be just so interesting. Like in 3 years from now, where are all of these guys and where's Starbucks relative to them? Has their share slipped down to half of the chain category? I'm not sure. But we'll see. I'm kind of fascinated to find out in a few years.
Yeah, it is, because, and then you have all of these other companies developing, because you got McDonald's, for instance. And to me, like, if I sit there and watch that beverage concept, I try to figure out what McDonald's is going to do. Now, I've said it before. I think ultimately, they tried that Cosmics thing. Did you go there? Have you been to
I haven't been. I've had a lot of friends who have gone and they liked it. Everyone seemed to like it.
It's good. It's really good, but I don't think they should do that. I think they'd be no, I don't. And I think they probably would be better off taking a lot of their menu items that they developed in there and just bring them to McDonald's, because they have the capability to serve it in their restaurants, and their franchisees want it, generally speaking.
Make it the Cosmics menu, the little section on the menu, Cosmics right here. All 13 or 14,000 McDonald's.
Yeah. And suddenly you've got even bigger beverage player. They're already a fairly big beverage player. Yeah. The beverage development in these next few years, because you also got concepts like Swig and all these boba tea concepts, and then you got like HT.
Yeah, and Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Smoothie King, all those established brands as well, still growing at good clips. So yeah, it's a growing but increasingly crowded place, I think.
Yeah. We don't, by the way, you mentioned we do not appreciate those two smoothie concepts nearly.
No.
Tropical Smoothie and Smoothie King have been probably some of the most consistent concepts outside of like Texas Roadhouse, which I'm going to ask you about.
I would say the same thing about Culver's, not just because I'm a Midwesterner, but they're smooth and steady, and I'm just a huge Culver's fan myself, but putting that aside, they have been, very strong chain over the last decade or more. They've, kind of slowly and steadily moved up the ranks, and, they're a pretty successful brand too.
Yeah. I mean, what's going on in the burger sector, though, generally speaking, because you got Culver's, and Culver's, I completely agree with you. Culver's is horrifically underrated. Nobody else talks about the quality. Their burgers are phenomenal.
I agree.
And you got
true Midwest here.
Yeah, you can get cheese curds. I visited their headquarters, was totally disappointed that they didn't just have bowls of cheese curds sitting out there. So disappointed. Anyway.
But above them in the burger category, I mean, it is not great. McDonald's just slightly positive, sales growth under 1%, Wendy's at 2%, Burger King essentially flat, Sonic a little negative, Jack in the Box a little negative. So the top 5 burger players, not a great year for them.
Right.
We'll see what McDonald's does this year. Yeah.
But the next 4 are
good,
are really good. So though I got to get my numbers on. So you got
Whataburger, Culver's, and In-N-Out doing very well.
Yeah. You got Shake Shack, Freddy's on the fast casual side. You got Whataburger. It's like Whataburger. Then this is where the whole fast casual thing makes no sense. Because like Shake Shack, and I know Shake Shack's is a little expensive, but Shake Shack is basically now going to target lower, trying to do more pricing actions and stuff like that. So you got Shake Shack, and they've done really well. You've got Freddy's, they've done exceptionally well. Habit, not so much. But then you got Whataburger and Culver's and In-N-Out, and it's like And oh wow, In-N-Out's past Hardee's and Carl's, and Hardee's and Carl's aren't doing well. So you got this old generation of concepts that are just sort of falling off. And McDonald's will come back. McDonald's had a tougher year last year, and they're almost in a category by themselves. But like it's almost like the old generation are coming out. And that's kind of what I think. If I look at any theme of this year, it's almost as if there is a new generation, and we wipe out the whole idea of fast food versus fast casual. Just this new generation of concepts and menus and whatever that are just sort of taken over and really establishing themselves in the restaurant space. And they've really done it the past couple of years, and it was more pronounced last year because all of these other concepts had problems with prices and consumers like pushing back over their menu prices. And yet they're still spending lots of money at Raising Cane's because Raising Cane's not really all that cheap. I hate to tell you. And they're so I mean it's and the burger thing is pretty much right there. Freddy's and Culver's are going to Freddy's and Culver's, and they're just not going to Carl's or Hardee's or Jack in the Box.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a great thought. When you don't have like that, I don't know, 10-year kind of view of like, well, when I was a kid or 10 years ago, McDonald's prices were this and now they're this, or like Burger King was doing this, or, God forbid, the Subway $5 footlong. When you don't have those kind of very deeply embedded perceptions about a chain, I think that helps, like you said, Raising Cane's, like you don't think about them 5-10 years ago and say like, I remember when Raising Cane's was this much money to get a, box of chicken tenders. It's just kind of like Raising Cane's is fun. It's cool. I like it. It's new. I'll spend whatever because it's tasty and it's got a great sauce. So I that certainly does help. I like that thought.
Yeah. There you go. There you go, Kevin.
New segmentation, next generation versus old generation.
That's basically what's happening to me if I look at this. If I really do. I mean, you take a look at all this, like drive-through coffee concepts are taking business from Starbucks. You got fast casual chicken taking business from KFC. You've got Texas Roadhouse, now the largest casual dining concept.
We haven't even gotten to them.
We haven't even gotten to Texas Roadhouse. I buried the lead here because they're the biggest, and we talk about consistent. They have been one time after the other, just really the most consistent, one of the most consistent chains.
Yeah, they're great. They have excellent operations. They just kind of in a class by themselves in the casual dining sector these days. I mean, 10 years ago, I think were the 10th largest casual dining chain, and now they're up to number 1. So didn't take them long to get up to the number 1 spot in the casual dining space.
No, well, since most of those in the top 10 haven't done all that well.
Yeah.
And, and it's, I mean, to me, like, here's one thing I'll say. It was like Kevin Hochman at Chili's looks at Texas Roadhouse. I mean, that is what he wanted for Chili's, was to be like Texas Roadhouse. And he knew exactly why Texas Roadhouse is the way it is, because they've kept their prices to, they haven't been over aggressive on prices. They don't offer discounts. And they're just maniacal about operations and making sure that the food is a high quality and to the point where, they've sacrificed this and that. And if I look at last year, of course, I mean, I've mentioned it several times. The biggest surprise of last year was Chili's by a long shot. Yeah. They had like 15% growth.
15% growth. Well, there you go. Social media giveth and social media taketh away, but social media definitely giveth to Chili's last year.
They did. Fantastic. All right, Kevin. Well, thank you again for joining me on the podcast. Wonderful. We will kill fast casual as a name eventually.
I'm looking forward to it.
And that should do it for this week's episode of A Deeper Dive, which was edited, as always, by Spoons. Artwork by Nico Hines. You may find this and other episodes of the podcast on our website at www.restaurantbusinessonline.com/article/deeper-dive. And you may subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I'm Jonathan Mays, your host, podcast producer, and the editor-in-chief of Restaurant Business. Thank you for listening.